Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do the full review of my Sinn 104. This is an STSI Type I. Now there's a few different variations of this available from Sinn, either with different coloured dials or even with slightly different hour markers, some with actual numbers on there, but this has just got the simple baton hands on there, the baton markers, sorry. And to be fair, I do like this. It was one of these watches I never really fancied at first. There was something about it. I never really thought that was a watch for me. I always tend to go for the EZM range, so more of a tool watch style rather than this, which I thought was a little bit more dressy. But I have been won over, it has to be said, with this. Let me give you some dimensions first. Get the calipers. Just zero them. Okay, so we're talking a case diameter of 41mm. It's actually the bezel which is the 41mm. I think the actual case itself is more like 40, but the bezel does protrude just past the case. So that's what gives it its 41mm. If we do thickness, so 12mm. So a very wearable watch really, not too big and again not too tall. If we go lug to lug, 47. So really, oh sorry, and the bracelet is a 20mm bracelet on this. So it has to be said, it's a very comfortable watch. It's got a bit of weight to it because of this H-link bracelet, but it's actually a very wearable watch. I say, if you put it in comparison to something like the U series, whereas the U1, UX, U2, these are all 44mm watches, but more importantly a 50mm lug to lug. This one's very respectable about it. It wears very much like a Submariner does. Now if we zoom in on that dial, let's have a look. It's just a very simple kind of I would say uncluttered, because there's hardly any writing on it apart from where you have, let's get this, where you have Sinn written at the top and the automatic and the made in Germany. Now it does have a very complex minute track running around there, but it suits a watch, being that this is a pilot's watch. And you also have these hands. These hands make it incredibly easy to actually set the watch very accurately, because they do go all the way up to the minute track and they're very thin, so it makes it very easy to actually set the watch to a dead on time, where if you put that in comparison to my EZM2 with the big rounded hands, it's a lot more awkward. These hands, I actually call them syringe hands, so it kind of makes sense. They are full of luminous material, as too is the second hand air. So it is an incredibly bright watch. I'll drop in a picture of the lume now. The lume, I think, in this watch is really quite nice. Now, I say it is actually a very simple dial because there's no applied markers as such. It is just a printed dial, even down to the day-date complication as just simply a frame around there. And I like it. I must admit, I do like it. As you come out, you do have a sapphire crystal with a very slight dome, and that dome is lovely because it actually blends and follows the profile of the raised bezel into that really well. So it seems seamless as you come down here. Really is very seamless. Now the actual bezel itself is a aluminium style bezel. You do have this lovely big luminous marker at 12, which makes it incredibly easy to see this watch at night with the actual marker. Now, but it is actually only a 60-minute, a 60-click bezel, but this bezel is very, very impressive. I would put this down to be equally as good as the UX, which up to now has been my favourite Sinn bezel for its action. Absolutely zero play, completely zero play on this, and it lines up perfectly. As you may notice, it is a bi-directional bezel, so that means it will rotate both ways. So, and it is a countdown bezel, which I find for actual real life scenarios is probably better. I do, but personally, it makes it, if you go off to a, let's say you know, you park your car and you've got half an hour, you can actually set that to 30 minutes and it will count down till it hits there. So you know exactly how long you've got. I prefer that kind of bezel myself. A dive bezel is kind of cool, but this one is a more workable everyday use bezel. The actual bezel itself as well is a captive bezel. So what I mean by that, you see you have screws around here. Now, if you were to get yourself most other watches, like let's say like this Rolex I'm wearing now, if you want to remove that bezel, all you do is use a tool. Let me just zoom out so you can see it's better. You'd use a tool, something like that, and you'd actually place it under there and pop it off. And they will come off quite simply. Obviously, there are different tools you can use, but that's how you'd remove it. This one, on the other hand, you can't do that. Why is Sinn say if you were diving or if you accidentally knock the bezel on, say, a door frame, or if it's a diver's watch on some coral or something, there is a high chance, well, not high chance, but there is a chance you can knock the bezel clean off the watch. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be good. So this one uses a ring inside which lips under the case of the watch. The case is raised up behind there and lips under it. So you're not going to very easily knock this off at all. If you do manage it, you've really hit your watch bad, and I think you're going to know about it. So to actually remove the bezel on this, you have to undo that screw, screw it side, leave the 12 o'clock screw, and then you can actually remove it. It's a more elegant way of actually removing the bezel, I find anyway. So as we come out the side of a watch, it's a polished watch. As you can see, all nicely polished around there. All going around. We do have a signed crown, which is a screw down crown. Now it's quite impressive because when you think this is a pilot's watch and it's water resistant to 200 meters. So it's got a DIN certification, which is similar to the ISO spec. So this is the equivalent of an ISO diver, apart from the bezel can rotate in both ways. So as we zoom around here, you can see we have the movement back there. The movement actually is a Sleater SW201. So the original S200 was notorious for grinding its teeth on when being manually wind, just like the ETA 2824. But the one, which this is, does have an improved tooth profile, which actually helps it. But they're still, I wouldn't recommend manually winding these a lot. All I tend to do is wind it a few times, 5 or 6 times, and put it on the wrist, and then you're normally good to go. The movement's normally got a power reserve of about 38 hours, and it beats at 8 beats per second. So as you can see, that second hand going around is quite smooth. It's the equivalent of a Rolex, basically. So a little step above the lower range Seikos, which only beat at 6. The bracelet is is the standard Sinn H-Link bracelet. This one does, this being the newer type, does have the hex screws for undoing it. So it's a very sturdy and very big kind of solid feeling bracelet. It has got the polished center links. Now, one thing I do find with it being polished and the actual case being polished, it looks more expensive than actually what it is. I think in the UK these go for about £1,500. But if I compare it to a £3,000 Sinn EZM 13, because of its all matte finish, its bead blasted finish, this watch just pops on your wrist that little bit more. It really does it looks more elegant, yet it's an equally kind of functional watch as such. But it just, I'm really quite taken by this. I'd never thought I'd like one, but I say it really does. It looks more expensive than what it is, I find anyway. So as we come around to the clasp, everyone's bugbear about Sinn. You have the standard clasp, machined, very positive, safety clip, and 3 levels of micro adjustment. And if I pull it out, you have the dive link extension, which still has a plastic on it actually. So that is a very solid. Now I know everyone criticise Sinn and says they need to do a new clasp. As far as I'm aware, they are coming up with a new clasp which will be out soon, but expect prices to go up because you're going to have to pay for it. Now this watch, it also looks great on the rubber straps. Now this is a rubber strap actually designed for it, but it is the EZM1 one which goes on there, and it does look quite good. But I'm really taken at the moment by this Belarus ISO diver, which I've been wearing it on quite a lot, and I find that looks absolutely fantastic. I'll drop shots in now of that one, and I think this is the strap I'd strongly recommend for this watch. Now, if I had to criticise this watch, and I will, it's unfortunate because this one, I brought it used, it was less than a year old, but its timekeeping isn't great. Now the Sleater SW200 movement can be quite good. You can easily get them to 4 seconds or less, but this one's running around 15 to 20 seconds a day, which obviously is far too much. And being that it has this on the case back with a display case on there, I don't have a tool which I can fit into there. Otherwise, I'd just regulate it myself. It wouldn't be a problem. So this is what's interesting. I contacted Sinn and asked them, and well, the UK Sinn service centre, and asked them. I said, look, I've got the watch. It's, you know, it's running, I said, about 20 seconds a day out. And they said, well, that's no good. Send it to us. We expect those to run within 4 seconds a day. So it's not actually stated on their website, but the Sinn Service Centre reckon that these should be running within chronometer spec standards, which actually I'm very impressed by. So after this review, I'm going to post this off to them and I'll send it off and get it regulated. So that I'm actually quite impressed with. I must say, overall, I like this watch a lot. I'll be happier once it's been regulated, that's for sure, but otherwise it's really good. It may not have all the tech of the other Sinns, but one thing it does also have, I should have stated, is the low pressure rating as well on this. If you imagine when you go diving watch, obviously you have high pressure on the watch, and that's what keeps it, you know, water resistant. But when you go into above sea level, you can have low pressure. Just imagine you're in a plane. I know this is, yeah, absolute, you know, the worst case scenario. A window blows out and there's some loss of pressure. Well, some watches can pop the crystal when that happens. These are supposed to actually, yeah, be low pressure tested. So in theory, it should be all right, I believe. So there you go, that's one of those things. Let me put it on the wrist and you get an idea of what it looks like. At the minute, I'm wearing a Rolex Deep Seas, a Rolex Sea Dweller SD4K. Now my wrist size is about 7, coming on for about 7¼ inches. And I think that is perfect. That looks really, really good. I really do, yeah, I'm really quite taken by this watch, I must say. But there you go, that's it actually on my about 7¼ inch wrist. And it looks great. I really like the H-Link bracelet on this with the polished center links. I think it really does work well. Yes, they're going to scratch, but if you're that worried about scratching it, then don't buy a watch, because otherwise you'll just end up putting them in the safe and never wearing them. But for me, I wear them, and if they get scratched, well, so be it. Worst case scenario, you can always get a Cape Cod on the polished sections and polish it back up. But yeah, this is in my Sinn, with my Sinns at the moment. As you know, I've got a few. This is my current favourite, so I really do like this. I guess if I had to have one of a bugbear, just looking at it, it's just reminding me that on most Sinns you have this chamfer. If I zoom in, you'll see it a little bit better. You see how you have this chamfer running along there nicely. where it does seem to disappear as it comes to the lugs. I think even the 13 is the same. In fact, it's more defined. You see that, and then it goes into round. I'm being hypercritical there, but that's just one of those things. So anyway, if you're still watching this view, thanks for sticking with me. And any questions about what, please feel free to get back to me, and I'll try and answer them as soon as possible. Or if you want to see it on some straps ready, I keep meaning to do another couple of videos like I did on the Marine Master 300, where I just get one watch and hammer it with a load of different straps so you can see how it looks. So, well, I'll perhaps give that a go and see what happens. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and any problems, any questions, please get back. Yeah, please get in touch, and I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. Take care and stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next review. All the best. Bye.